digital radio.
BBC Sounds.
And your smart speaker.
Play BBC Radio Scotland.
Thank you very much for that, Joy. You're listening to Lunchtime Live with me, Sarah McMullen, and the time has just gone 12:36. More than 25,000 people have signed a petition demanding answers about the 1994 Chinook helicopter crash in the Mull of Kintyre. It comes as families of the 29 people who lost their lives continue to accuse the Ministry of Defence of a cover-up. The MOD says the release of papers connected with the crash would breach personal data protection rights. I have Niven Phoenix with me now, whose father, Detective Superintendent Ian Phoenix, died in that tragedy. Afternoon, Niven. Tell me a bit about this petition.
Sarah, good afternoon, and many thanks for having us on the show. And also a big thank you to the over 25,000 people who've signed the Justice for the 29 site on change.org. We really do appreciate that support. And I think it shows that actually there is a desire amongst the public that we do not have repeats of this institutional corruption, which has been so evident in lots of things in public bodies over the last few years. We've had the Hillsborough crisis, we've had the blood crisis, we've also had various issues within the MOD, including the loss of the Nimrod, the loss of the C-130, and all of these are to do with airworthiness. And the first of those airworthiness accidents was the Chinook, which killed my father and his colleagues back in 1994 on the Mull of Kintyre. Had they addressed airworthiness at that stage, we wouldn't be in this position now, and certainly friends and colleagues wouldn't have been lost in those subsequent accidents, including the Nimrod, which affected obviously the Scottish people, as that was based out of Kinloss and Lossiemouth up in the north of Scotland.
Now, it's been 31 years since the crash. How does it feel to still be fighting for answers?
I think it's outrageous, and I'm disgusted, but that we're still in this position. It took 17 years to clear the pilots' names, which were all supportive of the pilots who were scapegoated in the original Board of Inquiry, which is overturned by two senior officers, probably at the behest of other senior officers. To be in this position 31 years later is outrageous, but I think is even worse is the fact they've sealed the documents for 100 years. So ultimately, they're waiting for us to die, they're waiting for my mother to die, and they're waiting for my children to die, and I think that is outrageous that they would do that. The duty of candour promised by Keir Starmer is just words and hubris. It is not been evident by his actions.
And so what do you make of it then that the MOD say the release of the information would breach personal data protection rights?
I think that's just a convenient ruse. GDPR was not even an issue when these documents were sealed. So they're just clutching at straws. So what have we got now? Well, let's use GDPR. Let's shut them up with GDPR for a couple of years until we can think of something else. We're not interested in the personal information of third parties. If they want to, they can redact that. And we want a public inquiry which will look as to the manner of this death. And the MOD keep talking about the cause of death, and we're not interested in the cause of death. We want to know why our loved ones were loaded onto an aircraft which was mandated to be non-airworthy by its own release to service. And that is information we are interested in, which has been sealed in those documents by the same senior officers who are complicit in that action itself. So they are basically covering their own tracks. And this is no difference to, we've got a history of lions being led by donkeys in the military in the UK, and this is another example. And just these guys are just a bit better at covering their own tracks.
And are you hopeful that you'll get a public inquiry?
No, we're very hopeful. We've got an excellent pro bono legal team that's come about due to the Chinook Zulu Delta 576 documentary made by the BBC and 5 Point Films. That's going to be shown, actually re-released in August, so it'll be the 16th and 24th if your listeners want to view that Chinook documentary, where Sir Malcolm Rifkind, the former Secretary of State for Defence, shows how he was serially misled and lied to. And I don't think we can be in a position where a Secretary of State can be lied to and there can't be a public inquiry. That would just be outrageous. So we've got an excellent pro bono legal team. We expect to take the MOT to court, and we fully expect to win.
And would that look like justice for you, Niven?
I think justice would be accountability and actually public bodies standing up and saying, you know what, we got this wrong back in 94. We should never have allowed the aircraft to fly, let alone allowed people to be on it. And unfortunately, if we don't have that accountability, and if we have a position where senior officers can lie to ministers and lie to our government and get away with it and cover their own tracks, then what is to stop them doing it again? And what is to stop the next, I have a son who perhaps wants to join the military, wants to stop him being compromised and his safety being compromised in the same way that my father and my colleagues were compromised. Because I was in the Air Force myself, remember, for 16 years. I flew non-airworthy aircraft. I flew a C-130K into Afghanistan that the US Air Force exchange pilot refused to fly because he realized there was no extinguishing foam in the tanks, which was ultimately what every other Western military had, apart from the Royal Air Force. They exposed us to risk on a regular basis, and they treat their people with contempt, and I want to see that stopped. And actually, a public inquiry, I think, would go a long way to help that.
OK, Niven Phoenix, thank you very much for speaking with us on Lunchtime Live this afternoon. Thanks for your time.